What's up? It's Shaman. How are you doing on Sunday? I hope you're doing well. I tagged several people. If I didn't tag you, please don't feel no way. I got my chores done. I helped some clients with a session today through video screen on FaceTime. I've got my candles on and I'm just sitting here on a nice quiet day. I figured I'd do a little give back when it comes to depression and suicide. So while we're waiting to see, we got bless up Kim. While I'm waiting, bless up Jackie, bless up sis. While I'm waiting for a few more people to join so people don't miss out on the very beginnings of it, I want to just share that it was beautiful. It was down in the Twin Cities for 2 days. I was helping out my son. And what I'm going to cover today is going to be very crucial. Bless up, Kim. Greetings. It's really going to be crucial. It's going to speak about, more advanced levels of what we do to help with depression and suicide and how you can know, how you can possibly prevent it. Bless up, bless up. Sometimes people have a really good mask and you just had no idea they were really chronically, or severely and acutely depressed and thinking suicidal thoughts. I've had experiences where, someone has said, yeah, I was just in the bathroom standing there and just looking in the mirror and wondering why should I even go on? What's happening for our young people, our young males, what's happening here where I live and in lots of different areas in the United States are more environmental impacts, like the paper mill here, spewing mercury for so many years, like the daily diets. So I'm going to cover this step by step. I have a nice little outline. You can follow along. And I encourage you to share this. This is a pretty important subject when it comes to depression and suicide. Part of the human experience is to have depression at some points in your life, but it should not be debilitating. It should be more of a reflective so that we're kind of examining our life and our choices, and we might have a little bit of regret about choices we made, and that's how we learn. But when we are, bless up, Steve, good to see you. When we're experiencing a great deal of depression, such that it starts to really interfere. We start to isolate. We start to, stop doing a lot of the activities that we formerly loved. And, we start having crippling thoughts and ideas that don't feel like us anymore. And we need to reach out and ask for help. When we do that, and when most people go to the Western allopathic doctor, what ends up happening is they leave with a prescription. And the prescription sends them to the pharmacy, and oftentimes, in my opinion, it makes things exponentially worse. We find people that have hung themselves that were never suicidal before, but for Paxil, Wellbutrin. Come on, guys. I hear the train, so hopefully they're not going to start howling from the vibration. So this candle goes for the message that I got last night from an extended family member whose brother committed suicide. And it also goes for the young man who clients informed me this strong. They were on the table on Wednesday that there's a funeral today for a young 17-year-old man right here in Cloquet who drove down to the cities and shot himself. He was in music. He was just, everyone loved him. No one had a clue. No one had a clue that this boy, 17-year-old, in school, in music, was going to shoot himself. We're shocked, no matter what you think about false flag events, and if the shooter themselves were staged or if they're happening with real people, people are being shot. People are being treated violently. People are not thinking well. I'm not going to say thinking straight. They're not thinking well. And unwell thinking is taking us to a different level that we may not want to traverse for too long. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Sometimes I squint because I don't want to wear my reading glasses all the time. So I was down in the Twin Cities, and as many of you know, I'm dealing with a close family member that's in addiction, has gone through some treatment, and then has relapsed a few times. And when close family members do that, sometimes you're sleeping with one eye open and you're not getting much sleep. So I'm clearing my throat a little more than I usually do. I think it's more stress related. And there's really nothing you can do about it when you're afraid that addiction might be a Russian roulette when it comes to they're taking their own life due to steep level depression. So instead of blaming the parents, the aunties, the brothers and sisters, because definitely there's emotional pain when it comes to depression and suicide, there's most often, there's chemical influence. Not the same thing the psychiatrists are saying. Chemical imbalance in the brain that needs to be fixed with Xanax and antidepressants. And I'm going to give you everything that you need to understand and understand why depression and suicide are what they are today. I didn't connect to my Thunderbolt, so I hope everyone can see me and hear me okay. Bless up, Ross. And bless up, Clement. Really, really good to see you. So I'm going to get officially started. One love. So depression and suicide are affecting both the young and the elders. And the elders just find themselves unable to cope with what we saw. I mean, how I grew up in the 60s in San Jose, there was apricot orchards, and it wasn't the big megatropolis that it is. You didn't walk outside and wonder why, helicopters and warlike planes were right above you, and you weren't constantly thinking about the chemtrails in the sky. You weren't constantly looking at a phone that you were scrolling on all the time. And all of these things perturbate and cause us a lot of problems, and they lend themselves to having a deeper state of depression. So when we're elders and we look around and we think, my God, now it's common for people to lie all the time. I experience it almost on a daily basis, to steal. You become more acutely aware that how could a lot of these atrocities have happened historically? The Holocaust, the slavery, and everything, like the factory farming of animals. Like you're looking and you're thinking, I'm really awake and I'm in an insane asylum. That can lend to someone feeling really depressed. So it's affecting the young and the old, okay? And it's affecting people. The depression and the suicide are affecting people. Looks like it's slowing. I'm gonna see if I can put my Thunderbolt in. Excuse me, 1 minute. I've got this Thunderbolt that I'm gonna plug in here that makes it so the internet exclusively stays on my laptop. There we go. That might make it better. We'll see. Okay. So, depression is where first the body started with the very first disease ever known. Do you know what the first disease ever known, actually, beyond the diagnosis code insanity, but the first lack of ease that we had, often we had it as a little baby, and it's constipation. Constipation. So constipation was the first thing. We had the 2 suicides this week, and I'll bet you if I was to sit and have a consultation, a session with them, I would learn that they probably also had experienced quite a bit of constipation. And I would know that their digestion and elimination channels were really blocked, okay? The one thing that's really important is the Western allopathic doctor doesn't seem to, from any of my observations in the last 40 years, doesn't seem to be, there's a dog walking by. Hey guys, come on. They don't. welcome to, okay guys, please, that's enough. The train goes by and it vibrates and they howl. Bless up, Latham. All right, so a person goes into the doctor and says, I'm just really depressed. I don't feel good. I don't know what to do. I apologize for the howling, by the way. And the doctor says, takes kind of an inventory like I do when I'm in a consultation. Give thanks, Kim. The doctor takes a visual inventory because the doctor, he or she, has been practicing for a long period of time. Like I have been helping people unwind, reverse, really should just say cure, because cure means reverse or relieve all the symptoms of something. But knowing how the legal system is tied in with all the other matrix systems, I'll forfeit using that word. So the doctor is really not fixing depression, and they're certainly not fixing it enough to prevent a lot of these suicides. So if you go to the doctor more often than not, you're probably just going to end up with an antidepressant. And any of your anti-life pills, there's something that we want to avoid if we possibly can. And unless you're in a situation with someone where it's absolutely life-threatening, and sometimes you have to make that decision. I have often felt that way with my son. He's not super open-minded when it comes to, getting his thyroid fixed up. And I said, at this point, I'd even just be happy if you get on Synthroid for a little while, feel better. And, so that's where you would see me do something that's really out of character. All right. Okay, there's different forms of depression, and sometimes we don't really even see what these different forms are. There's the obvious where you're just kind of mopey and you're really down, you don't feel good, you don't want to go anywhere, you don't really want to see anyone. I mean, life just doesn't feel really sweet. But not only is there withdrawing from friends and activities, but there's also the young woman or young man that sexually puts themselves in positions like, just F me, just jump on the bed, F me, and come on, daddy. And, there's all these sort of forms of self-violence that are an equal cry for help, and I live with two young men right now, and I've heard their shares, I've heard their shares from their buddies and their buddies and their buddies about the young women, 17, 18, 19, younger than that, 20, 21, 22. Next thing you know, they're getting the birth control stick in their arm, and they've already got, the hirsutism from their thyroid. You can see all the hair on the side in the summertime when they turn their face in the light. I had it, didn't know what it was when I was younger. It's excess hair growth because the hormones are imbalanced. Okay, doctors would call that the hirsutism. So all of these are showing you that depression is going to either be there or be very imminent because the hormones are imbalanced, because we're using these birth controls that are full of chemicals, because of the behavior of the person. So there's the sexual, the withdrawing, there's the self-harm. Some of these sexual activities or places where we put ourselves, we know they're not good for us, but still we do it. And we're exposing ourselves to a great deal of self-harm, okay? And lastly is addiction. Addiction is, can you find it? Can you tell me what's going on? Can you really rescue me before I do myself in? Can you really, I'm trying to get where you guys can see me in more light. There's one light there. Can you really help me before I harm myself? Because I'd love to love myself and I'd love to live more fully. That is the mind-body causative of addiction. Please help me to love myself. I'm going to violate myself so many times in front of you, and I'm going to be somebody so different from who you really know. So why is this addiction happening? Well, I've gone way down the rabbit hole and I continue to learn. And I found a lot of research showing, some of which I print off and I keep in a little file, especially for when Western allopathic doctors or clients have adult children that start wondering if you're actually working in their best interest or if you're just, doing something you shouldn't be doing with your parents. So calcium levels, I'm going to talk about this on the hair testing part of this live stream. calcium, some of the heavy toxic metals, the sodium, potassium. I'm going to explain why on the hair test a little bit later in this live stream, why you're going to see what you see on the test. Okay. All right. I've joined a lot of groups on Facebook in the many years that I've been on Facebook. Kick autism to the curb. I'm just going to make up some names because you can probably fathom who they are. Chelation groups, mercury poisoning groups. I only do it this way, electric groups. I only do it this way, alkaline groups. I'm only an alkaline girl. I'm only a green smoothie girl. I'm this. There isn't one way, one size fits all shoe that works for absolutely everyone. It doesn't. We have the same kind of human vehicle, but we're not exactly the same because there's different mind-body experiences and subconscious and unconscious levels, different zip codes where people have been exposed, like right here, to the paper mills that were spewing mercury and dioxins and sulfate type drugs. They're flooded in the rivers, so a lot of people here were fishing, exposing themselves to the water with their hands, their feet, jumping in the river, jumping off the bridges. So I've joined these groups, and long story short, I get really fascinated. I go in and I learn a few little nuggets. I go and I order their big, thick books, and I read them all from their chemists and everybody else, and I find rigidity. And when I say, well, I want to look at the mind-body piece, and I also want to look at their daily diet, I'm probably going to put them on a caloric restriction for a severe issue. I'm probably going to do this and that, and I'm going to plump up their tissues this way. They go, huh? What's that? And it's the same reaction I get from family members when I'm helping one family member through a consultation, and they're getting great results. And you would think, wow, she's saving that family member's life. But the legalism inside of people that demands conformity demands that they see a doctor. And even with everything right before their eyes, the radiant skin, the clear eyes, the presence, no more running to urgent care every weekend, and everything else, they're not happy. In fact, they could potentially attack you on many levels. So having 34 years under my medicine bag, my skirt, not my belt, I've experienced a great deal of learning. And I'm still learning every day. I'm still humble about it. But no, I'm not going to put everyone on the exact same situation for depression or potentially suicide. Okay? So we talked about those forms of depression. It could look like sexual, it could be addiction, it could be withdrawal, it could be just really mopey, it could be crying all the time. It could be that they went to their psychologist and they got diagnosed bipolar. And it's a transit in their life where they have an opportunity to heal themselves and work with myself or Kim here, the Kim and Russell that you see. She can do consultations with you as well. But each person has exposures, and for that reason, I do the hair testing. I'm going to show you, this is the patient report. So you would get, I'll take my mine here. This is the report that you're going to get. Okay, it's a very, very thorough report. And if you are unaware of hair testing, okay, before you possibly discount it, it's cited in 500 to 1,500 peer-reviewed science journals per week, strong. Dr. Watts has operated this lab for well over 30 years. Dr. Watts and I regularly have spoken via telephone. And when I am the slightest bit concerned about something or I'm looking for more clarity, since it's his lab of over 30-something years, he's published a great many scholarly articles, all of which are free on the website for you to read. And I encourage you to read them. I asked Dr. Watts to give me a call, at his leisure, and I go over things that I don't understand or overstand. In the patient report, you're going to get, and I covered up this person's name, I'm going to show you this person's name, which is a family member that is going through addiction, and I'm going to show you why, okay? See if you can read that. Okay. The depression is all the way at an 8, out of a 0 out of an 8 scale. And below that, you can see hyperthyroid. Hyperthyroid is hyper, it's fast, it's another medical speak. So for some time as a baby, your thyroid was already slow. And now that it's been gasping and choking, and you've gone all the way into depression, and your gut is destroyed. And I'm going to show you something else here when I cover up the name on this side. I don't think someone wants their... If I show you this for a minute, can you see these two extremely tall lines? Those are sodium and potassium. And the very first line, right over here, backwards, let me see this one here, which is far below what it needs to be, whoops, this way, okay, is calcium. So the thyroid has been struggling and was slow for so long. And I can see it right there. A little snippet of hair got sent into the lab, gives me a complete report, the patient report that I keep forever so I can work with you or not. The big fancy report with all of it in there for you, for your file to keep and work with someone else or read it through and figure it out. It's very easy to understand. But the intricacies of reading the report are something that took me some time and took me a lot of my experience to really understand what they mean, what you may potentially be, exposed to down the road. Okay. So I find when I've joined a lot of these groups that I find rigidity because I'm doing intuitive gathering through an interview process, of which took me decades to learn what to gather in addition to my wellness forum that I have on my computer. So they can go to my website, click on having a consult with me. The drop-down arrow says wellness forum, and they can fill out the wellness form right there online in less than 5 minutes most of the time. Click submit, it goes right to my email. Now, instead of you wasting your precious time on your consult, I'm going to look at that and study that, give thought, gain some insights, look up anything I need to before I meet with you in our session. And we can use our time, the 45 full minutes, very, very wisely. I'm also going to probably ask most people with depression to get a hair test for $125. The link is on the post here, because you're going to have this. It's probably going to save your life. It's probably going to save you from the unnecessary exposure of lifelong, pharmaceutical drugs. Okay. Each person has exposures. I grew up in San Jose. I was born in San Francisco. I lived in an area, there was a lot of gold rush activity many, many years ago, However, the life of mercury in the gold rush epidemic is over 10,000 years that the mercury isn't going to be going anywhere. So between the radiation from Nevada nuclear experiments, and I was in utero, and the mercury out there, the mercury in my mouth, and now the mercury living over here, I had a full-blown, I lost it. And I brought myself back from the brink of insanity. That'll be another live stream, okay? So each person has different expressions. And, one person might be really skin picking all the time and nervous and have a super high level of anxiety. Another woman might be really getting a lot of facial hair and needing to wax all the time, but this hair is getting thin and she's having panic attacks. It can look different. And I'm going to listen carefully and honor this person and get them something so I can get them feeling better as soon as possible, while also keeping in mind that everybody has a budget. Most people have a budget. Most of us don't have an open, absolute, ability to spend whatever we want on our health. I understand that, okay? There's also involved with depression, emotional pain. Is there any of us that got through our childhoods unscathed? Did any of us not have to do things that we shouldn't have had to do as children? We shouldn't have had to hear mom and dad screaming and fighting, or go get dad out of the park, or mom picked other partners in her life and they turned out to be maybe physically abusive. Maybe mom and dad died and mom had to go take an apartment somewhere that was really, really terrible to live there, you know. And so maybe you went to school, you know, and like my son, you came to an area that was extremely white with people that really didn't understand. You know, they were still using, you know, extremely archaic terminology like mulatto and, you know, always thinking about your nickname. Everybody else got a fun nickname, but yours was always racially inclined, you know. And I've done a lot of planting seeds and waking up and giving free talks around here at my own expense. And I've been targeted for it. Okay. So white supremacy, privilege, thyroid, reversing cancer, healing yourself, you know, you might think that with all the knowledge and all the healing and everything I've had, that my life is just one big bed of roses and I make a ton of money. Not right now. It will be. It's coming, but not right now. I've paid dues for over 15 years in a very small city in Northeast Minnesota. No one comes up and is like, whoa, you know, she's amazing. They don't get it, you know. They're completely trained to only go see the doctor. And so you can give them freebie after freebie after freebie. They're probably not going to pay you, even if they're suffering and they've gotten their hair test. They're probably not going to come sit down and do a consult, but they will drop money at the casino with the drop of a hat. So that's how it goes. Okay, there's emotional pain. There's also levels of attachment dysfunction. And that is, we send our children off to school without ever really fully realizing what the child's mind is thinking, that they're spending that many hours every day absent from the home, the heart, and the hearth. So instead of us really giving them food and making food together and sprouting seeds and teaching them about the way of life, ital is vital, they're being sent off. They use that terminology in jails and prisons. He's a sent off, right? Well, we're giving our children a send off, and it creates an attachment difficulty. I won't say disorder, but an attachment difficulty based on how that child is feeling, those emotions that are going through the blood and the body. You know, when they're thrust in with teachers, the majority of teachers in elementary schools, let me cancel, not the majority, a great many teachers bully the students. They don't want to go to work every single day. They're just counting down the days for summer. And there's a great many teachers that are absolutely wonderful, but how can you be wonderful? As wonderful as you could be if you're teaching to the test and you're teaching an absolutely, you know, idiotic curriculum. It's not possible. So anyone would start to feel a little sourpussed by it, okay? You listening, Pablo? Pablo? Are you listening, buddy? Okay. All right, so different zip codes. For example, this one, if you're in Cloquet and you're listening, like Tammy and Pam, Tony Ferguson, and there's a whole bunch of people. Spencer, my little brother Spencer Pringle, okay? The paper mill has been functioning for over 100 years here in Cloquet and also the one in Duluth. And there are paper mills all across this country, and they are some of the most absolute toxic polluters, and they're absolutely detrimental to our health. But you don't see it and taste it, not really. So it's an accumulation within your tissues, your organs, your cells, and then eventually one day you just snap. You know, you snap. You start snapping. You don't function right. You don't think right. And you may get caught up in the legal system, or you may get caught up in the mental health system. And you might think, well, this is just something that, you know, most of my family had. And I don't know. I mean, I was under a lot of pressure and, you know, but I can see your pictures on Facebook. I can see what you post. I can see how you talk, what you value. I can see your skin, your eyes, your hair. I can see, just like you can see me. And I can tell you what's coming up on your path. Okay? So different zip codes. Find out what kind of toxic polluters are around you in the area where you live. Do you have nuclear plants? Right? Do you have titanium? Do you have uranium under the ground? Is that a big deal, right? Is there, what different kinds of chemicals have been sprayed? Is there agriculture around you? You know, what's going on around you that you need to really look for and you'd benefit from testing for with your hair? Hair is also another form of body tissue, okay? So there's a lot of people out there. There's a couple of gals up here that became shamanic practitioners. And I got a little bit of a qualm with that, because if you really never go out and heal people, but you just have tons of money and you can fly off and buy a credential and, you know, sit out in the woods and drink a little ayahuasca and have an experience, and you hold yourself out to be a shaman like I do as an elder over 55, and you start working with people and you inflict harm, you create a negative image about shamans for me. And I don't like that. And that's when eventually I start to withdraw from anything, and why I called my business Naturally with Karen. Because just because you may have had the $15,000 or $20,000 to get on an airplane and fly over and drink ayahuasca and buy your credential, I didn't earn mine that way. I earned mine through repeated education and experience and working in the trenches with people, sometimes when I had a lot and sometimes when I had nothing. Okay? So it's important that the people with depression and suicide are actually going somewhere where they're really going to benefit, right? Okay. So like I said, recently, someone that I know really well, a client told me on Wednesday about the funeral this weekend for the 17-year-old boy. And then last night, I was informed by an extended family member that a brother committed suicide. And both of them were young men, boy and men. So why does Cloquet have so much MS, Parkinson's? It's an ALS, concentrated area of ALS, amyotrophic issues. Why is there so much cancer? Why is there so many brain tumors, migraines? Why do I hear people telling me, oh, I can't go, I'm allergic to the sun? And I go, no, you're not. You're not allergic to the sun at all. It's just that the sun is solar radiation that you feed upon, and it's bringing things out of your skin that you've ingested long ago, okay? So then you're going to get depressed because you're not getting and feeding, you're not feeding your skin bag, your earthen skin bag from solar radiation. You're not, okay? You're equipping yourself with sunglasses, you're slathering on all the stuff that I've never put on in my life. I go outside, I don't burn. You can see I'm in a white vehicle. This is how I arrived, is in this white body bag, skin bag, and this skin bag doesn't burn. It's pretty rare. I'd have to have an extremely unusual extended period of time. And that's because I know how to enrich my keratinocytes, and I know how to enrich my melanocytes. I know how to enrich my melanin internally. And so therefore, when I go out into the sun, I bronze really nice. I don't start burning. I just bronze up more and more and more. And I love it. And I feed on it. Feels like I'm feeding on the sun, right? If you look at some of the tribes over in Africa, they'll put on the red ochre, the dye, and the clay, and they'll rub it all over their skin because they're under extreme, near the equator, extreme sun. And they know what to do, right? So the women, are getting the birth control like the stick, and they're getting HPV shots, which are absolutely a no-no. Absolutely a no-no, okay? HPV shots. They've got heavy metal toxicity from all the vaccines as young children that they were bombarded with, like high levels of aluminum. I have one mother here on my page that I've worked with very recently, and her son wanted to go into football, and they couldn't find his shot record, his vaccination record. So the coach kept insisting that he got a complete, set of vaccines all over again to comply with the requirement. And, soon after that, this young man was diagnosed with a mental health, a pretty substantial, right? And I know that we could detoxify from that because I had his hair. report. So sure enough, she started doing what we talked about in the consult, and many of his symptoms went away, right? So these things that our young people are just being told to do, the birth controls, the drinks that are being sold in the convenience stores, like these aluminum cans of energy drink, just get yourself a bottle of taurine and get on a better diet. You can take 1,000 milligrams of taurine. You'll have energy. You'll just be fine. So if I'm working with someone in a consult, like we are right now, and we're working through FaceTime together, I can ask them to stick out their tongue. I can ask them about their basal body temperature. I can ask them, what was their last blood pressure? What's going on? And I will ask the questions. Sometimes I won't need to know some of these things. Sometimes I know this person's probably really only going to do one consult. And yet if I've got someone who's got a very lifelong buildup and they're very critical, I could go as much as needing to see you once a day. As, I'm holding your hand through, which I am doing right now with one client, okay? So let's kind of talk about your daily habits. If I have one young woman that I know very, very well for almost 5 years, and her moods were off the charts. She had also became drug addicted. She went back home, and a psychiatrist told her she needed Xanax and antidepressant for her anxiety and her depression. Now, if you're not opening up bags of Takis and eating top ramen and sitting in the house with the blinds down during the beautiful part of the day, you're never getting out to walk. I never see you drink a glass of water or a nice big cantaloupe banana smoothie with a ton of vitamin C in it. I don't see you doing, like this morning, I did 4 loads of laundry. I swept and mopped. I feed the dogs never from a bag. I worked a client on the video, and I cleaned the house, and I'm getting things done. And now I'll go on to study, and I'll go meet a young man at a group home. I'll do my live stream. I've got good energy. And I'm 57 next month. I've got, a good amount of hair. I'm not too picky about my hair, so sometimes I just kind of put it up there just to kind of, so I get things done and it's not getting into things. So the birth control, the HPV shots, what you're eating. Are you not walking? Are you not getting any real food? Your food is solar radiation. It's cosmic, plentiful, beautiful air. It's water that flowed over the rocks and comes down with the minerals. It's not going to McDonald's. It's not getting a big bucket of French fries. It's not going to Marie Callender's. It's not, running over and, some of the things that I would love to do. I love going to Hooks. And over there in Dalen University, and I love fried catfish. Well, I love all those things. It tastes so good on the tongue because I'm used to it. But if I lived on those things, I would be severely ill. And I was at one time, okay? So what could show up on the hair test? Let me just kind of give you a little thing. I'll fold over the name here again, okay? So if you look at let's see here. This way. There we go. Okay. If you look at the red section, you're going to see that that one line that's right over here in the red section, that actually indicates that this particular person has an exposure to lead. But what else is on here? Okay, we've got uranium, arsenic, okay, beryllium. The Hg is mercury, cadmium. Okay, we've got the aluminum and everything else. You're going to want to know, okay, I'm going to cover the name here, your mineral levels, all the critical mineral levels we need to know. Again, the calcium, very low, the sodium and potassium, extremely high. I'm going to come over here and look to see what are the toxic metals. I'm going to come down here and see some of the ratios, what's going on there, okay? And it's going to give me an in-depth picture of what's going on internally, so then I can speak it with you and show you why our plan of action is what it is. And again, this person that I showed you earlier has an 8 out of an 8 in depression. So it shows me that this person is eating a diet extremely high in sodium. It's completely took the potassium levels catawampus. And I can come over here and look at other levels. And on the sidebar here, it's going to explain what you're looking at. It's going to give a recommendation for supplements, and this is just the practitioner's report that I keep. Your report is going to be much more involved, okay? It's also going to tell me your metabolic type, down here. It's going to tell me between numbers 1 and 4, are you super slow? Are you super fast? What's going on with your metabolism, so we know how to design a good diet for you, a good food rhythm, okay? And then, like I said, on the back, it's going to show me the trends. It's going to show me, what's going on with the person, what diseases or what conditions are going on. Now, if the person has an 8 out of an 8 on depression, sometimes they won't even listen to you because they can't hear. They're just shut down. They're rigid, and for lots of reasons that happens. And you're going to have to do your best, to see if you can even get them to a regular doctor to get them on something. Like I mentioned for my son, I would even take getting him on Synthroid for a while just to kind of normalize him. And then I could get him to think clearly and get him onto another, way of life with a different diet. Okay, so I'm going to show you really quickly when you get a hair test. You get, you pay for it through the website, and you get this little thing here that's called a hair. This is your hair scale. Sounds really fancy, right? But this is a hair scale, and it shows you and tells you exactly how to cut the hair from 3 places. It's not more than a teaspoon of hair. You take and you bend the little sides in that are already bent for you, just like this, okay? Just like this, actually, yeah. You're going to bend them on the side where you see the arrow right here that tells you, and you set it on the table, and you put the hair on it till it slightly tips over. Now I'm going to take the hair that's on here that's sitting on my table, and the envelope that I gave you that you write your name on, I'm going to open the envelope like this. I'm going to take the hair sample and I'm going to dump it in the envelope. I'm going to moisten it, seal it, write my name and the shampoo that I used. The shampoo is important because some shampoos, like dandruff shampoos, are very high in selenium. We don't want to get a false selenium reading on your test. So, I have you write down the name of the shampoo that you use. I give you a self-addressed stamped envelope, and you mail it all back to me, and I'm the only one that's allowed to communicate with the lab, so as a practitioners are. So I send it into the lab, and it takes about 2 weeks. You got your hair report back. So let's go over something. If you had high iron levels on your hair test, and that would be the one here that says Fe on it. Fe is for iron. So if you had high iron levels, did you know that it might mean that you're feeding a tumor or cancer inside your body? But your doctor might tell you that you have hemochromatosis. Your doctor might ask you to do regular blood draws so that you can lower your hemoglobin, so that you can lower the iron levels in your blood. In fact, the Western allopathic doctor might put you on, like a lady that came into the day spa, $17,000 a month of medications, drugs. $17,000 a month in drugs. If you live on the iron range, like I do, it's a land full of iron, damn straight you're going to have more iron. But if your iron levels are high, like 4 of the people I've tested, very high, and one lady already has a diagnosis of hemochromatosis. Think of adrenochrome, hemochrome. You're going to start kind of adding it up and doing the math. That was a big hint right there. Okay, so hemochromatosis. Or you're a mother and your daughter, even 2-year-old daughter, starts losing all of her hair. Your son, your daughter, starts losing their hair when they're 11 or 12. Puberty's coming in. or even they're younger. I've seen them younger. And I've seen them run them to every doctor, and she'd come back in, and now we're taking her to the endocrinologist. And I said, good luck with that. You pay about $900 through your insurance or out of your pocket, and they'll come back and give you the same crap. Been there, done that. I referred clients to the endocrinologist 10 years ago. I don't do that anymore. Now I charge them $125. I ask for the hair tissue, which is going to give me far more than a blood serum tissue test, and it doesn't hurt. And yes, you got to pay out of your pocket most of the time. And yes, when you bring it to your doctor, they've never been trained on how to read these. And 99% of the time, they're going to say, I don't want to see that. I can't see that. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's not real science. That's not, but it is. And now that we live in the information age, we have a ton of information and a tiny bit of knowledge and wisdom and a lot of legalism. You can check for yourself. You can go on the Trace Elements website. I can do the test for you, and I can read the test for you and give you insights that are going to save your life. And that's what I have been doing. Okay, high iron, we talked about that. Low calcium, your thyroid doesn't have the building blocks to make thyroid hormone. So now it's pulling calcium out of your bones, and it's leading you to perhaps be a 23-year-old with what? Porous bones. The bones are the crystals of the body. That's how they help to transmit. So now you become osteoporotic, porous bones. Okay, not difficult. I don't like to use all these big words with my clients. I worked in the legal industry for almost 18 years, had an office in judges' chambers. I know all the big words. I love them. They're kind of fun to play with, but they frustrate people sometimes. So I try to keep it just like my book, down to earth, step by step, simple instructions. Okay? All right. We no longer see people healing. I had a session this morning, this Rise, and some of the relatives of the client are really up in arms because they wonder if what I'm doing is safe. Is it safe? Is it safe that the person's no longer going to urgent care for their stomach? That the person's no longer reporting that they feel like they have massive hands gripping on them and that they feel like they're going to die soon? Or how about that their allopathic doctor and their specialist doctors warn the family to prepare for death by the end of the year, if not by summer, to get all their things in order and the family together? So what if you took that person with all of your wisdom and experience that I earned through a lifetime at almost 57, and you walk that person through these things, and sometimes it looks scary, it looks ugly, sometimes things come out through the eye, they come out through the spine, they come out through the gums, right? Sometimes the person looks like they're just absolutely, tanking. Could you have the courage to keep going? Even knowing that other people were doubting you, all of them, all around you, all of them, just about, not all, just about all of them. I do it because I love what I do. I could go out and make a hell of a lot more money and have no stress working in law. But you, the general public, you don't see healing anymore. You don't. All you see is treating. All you see is fruit fasting and fruitarians and alkalining, and that's a good start. That's this far. That's a good start. But it's time that people really know how, when you are hit with something major. Dr. Sebi took on 78 cases of active AIDS, not HIV, AIDS, and he proved to the Supreme Court that he cured them using blood tests. In fact, he didn't even hire legal representation, did he? But now Dr. Sebi is removed. He's gone. He's with the ancestors. Rest in peace and power. Dr. Shook is gone. Dr. Abramson and his person that worked with him for 34 years, Paula Horry, said, "Thank God for you, shaman, because there's nobody left." And Dr. Abramson would have loved you, shaman. You're exactly in alignment with what he wanted to do. So you've got a lot of people that are very, very, very rigid about chelation's only done this way, period. It's only done with this thing. No, it's not. Nope. Each person is a journey. So with this one client I'm working with, I'm having them do artwork so I can see what's coming out of the subconscious and the unconscious mind when they were pre-verbal. You think that doesn't have a lot to do with the brain? It most certainly does. And I enjoy the heck out of it. I mean, I really, really have a deep passion for this work. It's my dream work. I love it. I love it. Okay. High iron, low calcium, high sodium and potassium, arsenic, aluminum, lead. My son's had lead on it. How on earth did he get exposed to lead when my hair test didn't have lead? You know what? It makes me start to wonder about the corrupt principles in the schools, of which I had very strong intuitive feelings about. What, did they happen to give him a cup of Kool-Aid one day? To you, that might seem paranoid. To me, I got to scratch my head and wonder, how in the hell did this happen? And this is precisely why I homeschooled and I unschooled, and I had the system fight me on it. And my son ended up going back to school where he wanted to go. And I was adamant and livid that we do not trust the schools. They are not beneficial for young children. They are not helpful, and they are not teaching them anything besides regurgitated stuff. Okay? They're nothing more than a state-funded daycare. If you don't believe me, you can read the book called Public Orphanage, if you can find it. You can find it on Amazon Used. So all of these other healers are gone, and you're left with me. I know how to walk someone through an extremely difficult physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, you name it, a situation. Not just put them on a fast, not just put them on alkaline, not just give them smoothies. A food is a very small part of what I do. Mind, body, herbal, etc., etc. You know, I've learned a lot from and with people. I learn from them too. Each time I'm doing these consults, it's a great learning opportunity. So here is one, piece of the research which shows you, for different types of addicts. See if you can read that for a moment. It gives the age of the person who has become addicted, and what their hair test showed. So we can start to find commonalities in people who hair test who have addiction. I can tell you that people that are going through MS, they probably honestly believe that there's nothing out there for them but strictly seeing the Western allopathic doctor. Ross Flacco, my dear, dear brother who I respect, so greatly. The ancients are coming down with many different situations, health conditions that had never afflicted the ancients before. The ancients. And what I have to say to that, I know we talked last night through an inbox and that was private and personal. However, the diet, how we push some of this stuff through the body the quickest and the safest, how we make it affordable for people to recover from what Babylon has done to them through vaccines, their water. It is basically an extermination effort between Haiti, Syria, Turkey, Jamaica, and all over the world. Certainly, absolutely, as I speak with Ox a couple of times a week, Oswald, over in Liberia, I learn what it's like firsthand to live over there. When he calls me on the phone, I've never been nor lived in Liberia, but I'm learning vicariously through what he's sharing on the phone. And I nor you would probably really welcome nor really like that. If you couldn't just go out and get a job and you had to get a hustle on every day, and, people were thieving and fishing phones out of your house by sticking a stick in the window, his phone is gone now. It's not like when you post something, even like this live stream, People over in Africa have to pay for internet a different way. They're not going to sit there and just watch all of your live streams because of how the internet is charged over there, much like the lights are charged. We pay a bill that comes every month, and we might bill pay it or pay it through the mail or run to the office, but they pay differently. It's a different setup. Okay. So maybe you don't have to have a business license, but you better have something to be able to pay someone who's going to pay someone who's going to pay someone if you get yourself in a situation. I cannot, more emphasize. I cannot emphasize any more than I have already how important, I'm trying to get my light to go back on, there we go, how important it is to hair test. Then if you're cleansing and you're doing, whatever you can do to detoxify yourself, whether you're working with me or someone else, or you're just doing it on your own because maybe your situation is very minor, your health situation, you'll be able to also do a retest for far less, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever you decide. And you're going to get the results side by side on another test. They're going to come side by side. You're going to really want to pay attention to the red box and the blue box so you can see what your mineral levels really are. Don't just guess and assume what they are. Find out what they are. For $125? Are you kidding me? If you went to the doctor and you had one mineral test, the doctor might just test you for potassium. And that would be if you kept reporting that you were having muscle cramps. And like me, you had a banana that day before you went to the doctor. Now your potassium levels are going to register as extra high because you had one banana. This way, that little hair sample of yours, it's less than a teaspoon, that you sent in the sealed envelope to me, and I sent it to the lab for $125, you're going to be able to see all of your minerals, all of your heavy metals, all of your ratios. Let me give you an example. Zinc, it's in sunscreen, it's in skin lotions, it's in skin repair lotions, like if you've had bug bites, right? Okay, it's in some of your shampoos. Zinc is in lozenges that you suck on because maybe you just feel like you're getting a cold or the flu. You don't feel right, you feel kind of sick, so you start sucking on a zinc lozenge because you want to boost your immune system. As your zinc levels go extremely high, zinc and copper have to balance each other. Now, if you're a person that's really into Kemetic science, I'm a Kemetic African certified yoga instructor, and I've studied a little bit about Kemetic science. I support the laws of Ma'at. Then you'd know from looking at the hieroglyphs in Kemetic science that copper was extremely important to the ancient Africans. You'd know that the reason I'm wearing this copper bracelet is because I want to elevate my copper levels a little bit by wearing it on a physical level. And I bought one for my son too. I got them off of Amazon for $20 a piece. Okay, I got a whiter one that's, was made by a small-time artisan, and I got one for my son with his name on it. And I've asked my clients from time to time, if your zinc levels were kind of high and your copper levels were kind of low, and you're in depression, this is another nugget I'm giving you. Take a look at your copper levels. More than likely, if you're in depression, your copper levels are down in the toilet. How could that happen? That might happen because maybe mom had silver fillings in her mouth. And the mercury and the copper and the silver that make an amalgam, meaning more than one metal, an amalgamation, an amalgam, have now been flooding through the maternal cord blood down into the baby. We didn't come with a manual that explained all these things. I ended up reading entire books on amalgam illness, finding hidden metal toxicities, talking extensively with Dr. Watts, and working this for over 55 years to get what I have. So now I have memory banks worth more than gold in today's world which is different than the world it was 100 or 500 years ago in some respects. You got to know about what's affecting people and why. You got to know that they only are trained to believe what the doctor tells them. So even if they tell me, no, he has multiple myeloma, like I heard last night, no, she has myasthenia gravis. I don't think you know about that. I say, are you kidding me? I don't care what mumbo jumbo they call it. It's all the same damn thing. Every bit of it is the same thing, except that many of these viruses were inserts. They were manufactured on a chemist's table and they were inserted into the plane. Okay. So that kind of ends what I had to do with, I'm just looking, see if I can read here with these little cheapy reading glasses. Masinga, Nancy, my cousin, bless up Nancy. Conscious Marie joined. Yes, I'm glad you did it for Ari too. Such a big positive investment. Anyway, it's Sunday. I think people are probably out doing what they do on Sunday and thinking, oh geez, tomorrow's, work and all these things. But I'm going to keep, coming back, and I'll do a shorter give on the hair test because not everybody has all the time in the world to go through all this. But if you're dealing with someone who's got depression, addiction, and suicide, you'll want to watch this whole live stream. You'll want to rewind it and listen because it's very important. And if you're a young person that's inserting the birth control and eating all these things like the Takis and the ramen and, the noodles all the time, you're not drinking water, you're not getting out and walking, you got to move those foot pads, okay? Got to get yourself going so you can move the constipation, you can get the digestion, elimination, you can get the skin to do what it needs to do so it can assimilate and eliminate. So, hope you enjoyed it, and I'm off. I'm going to head over to a group home in a little bit and help take care of one of my clients. All right, so long. Mwah.